Okay guys, today I am going over squatting. Now with squats, we'll talk about barbell squat. It is a good exercise. Having said that, from what I understand and in particular talking with my coach and what seems to be going on in the coaching world these days, it's not something that's always or given out as much as it used to be. It seems some of the bilateral patterns and in terms of back health in back health in general, people are avoiding doing the squat, which is fair enough. But from a general strength point of view, if you were trying to get strong reasonably quickly, it's not unreasonable to suggest working on your bench, your squat, and your deadlift. So I just wanted to cover some things for you guys to consider if you are going to try and venture out and do a barbell squat. From what I've been taught in terms of, let's just talk about bracing. So we'll just talk about a few things, and if you've got questions about the squat, just fire them through. So with bracing, what I've been taught, having done some stuff with Eddie Portal and him talking about his experience with going and doing strength training with the Chinese, they're very big on actually pressing the stomach out quite strongly for such lifts. So he almost suggested that like the flat belly is almost defined as something that's a little bit ugly there, which is interesting. I do remember him talking about them sort of working on exercises where they might lay on their back, put like a small weight plate on top of their belly and try and pop them off. So really trying to develop a lot of strength through there. So with the barbell squat, if we're talking about bracing, so pretend I'm underneath the bar, I'm coming down, breathing in and actually trying to fill up through this area and holding the tension, and then exhaling or even grunting or squeezing the bar a little bit, I think is something to consider working on. Keep in mind that people are going to teach you how to squat differently. Like there are different coaches and different ideologies, but I would say it's reasonable to suggest to not draw the belly button in and just make sure this area is strong. Or the cue, like bracing for a punch, like that, tensing through the punch is similar, not quite the same, but I think a lot better than you sort of trying to suck your belly in. So that's something to consider. The other thing to consider with your squat is where your feet are at. So your squat distance will be different to my squat distance, and that can be in terms of width. That can be a lot to do with the shape of your hips, the length of your femur, the top of your femur, joints, several different things, all right? So, determining where your feet are positioned in the bottom of the squat, like this is not a great thing for me to be holding on to, but try and hold on to something steady like edge of a doorway, pull yourself into a squat position and try and work out where you might feel comfortable, okay? So I'm here, I'm wriggling around, I'm trying to be long through the spine. That feels like a reasonably comfortable position for me, okay? So that's where I try and position my feet if I was going to go into a barbell squat. Now, I think, and it's my experiences, and again, some stuff that I've spoken about with my coach, working on a kettlebell goblet squat or having the weight in the front is a good sort of prerequisite exercise before moving on to a barbell squat where the bar is on your back, okay? So in short, so not in great depth, kettlebell squat, what looks like something like this. So grabbing onto kettlebell by horns, toes turned out or feet positioned where you feel comfortable, breathing in, obviously filling up gut, and pulling down and trying to be very long through the spine. So the cue that we use is sort of separating your head away from your tail, not allowing your back to round, Okay guys, so if I just hold it here so Anthony can just show you. So we're trying to keep that tail nice and strong. And the other cue that they might use is sitting on the curb. So working on that kettlebell squat tends to teach people how to hold their spine reasonably well. And it also can help sort of opening up through these hips in case people's knees do collapse in. Some other things to consider about the squat. Your hips. If your hips are tight, you might need to go into a frog stretch. If you want to know how to do the frog stretch, just have a look at one of the other blogs, like on my webpage, or send us a message. Working on your ankles as well. So you would have seen this with me. Just working on ankle dorsiflexion, because you're going to have to flex a fair amount in order to get into a good squat. So again, that is something else for you guys to work on. You might need to work on your ankles and your hips a little bit before even allowing yourself to try and get into a reasonable position with your barbell squat or even your kettlebell squat to start off with. So I'll just do the barbell squat now. So I feel like I've got a reasonable kettlebell squat. So here. So with me, I like to position it along the top of my traps. That is a bar. If it's too much pressure, you might want to get a bar pad. You will get used to the bar after a while. It will take some time, but along the top of your traps, hands aren't too wide. So I'm going to step underneath. Alright, I'm going to come up first. Hopefully that's nice and centered. Get my feet right. So I'm going to breathe in, fill up belly, come down to a reasonable depth, and come back up again. Now, you might want to consider creating a bit more tension if you're stuck in the squat. So that meaning, like in particular in your bottom position, struggling to come up. So creating tension, so I'm squeezing the bar just a little bit, will help you to get out of that hole there. All right. And again, for those guys that haven't done squatting for quite some time, it's probably even worth just working on the bar without any weight. All right, so that's something for you guys to consider and to work on before you start adding your weight on. And I would say, if you are trying to get stronger in general, don't ramp up your weight super fast. Be really, really patient with it. Just take your time, take it easy. Strength is a long game. You can get pretty strong quite quickly if you haven't done much before. But I would say you've got to look after the soft tissue muscles and the ligaments and tendons a little bit. So be patient. You don't have to rush that. Now the last thing I'll talk about, again, ankles seem to be a big issue with people. So I'd ask that you work on your ankles and try and loosen them up. But if you do really struggle with trying to get some reasonable depth in the hip without rounding through your back, then hiking your heels up is something for you guys to again, maybe consider or do. So pretend I've got bar here, breathing in again, making sure, I should have said before, my knees are tracking a line with my second toe. This makes it easier for me to get into a reasonable position, still work on my quads and my glutes quite effectively, but without sacrificing my lower back position. Now again, you've got to decide with all these things as to how and what will work for you. I've read an article before that's been put out with some very experienced strength and conditioning guys, or squatters in general, saying, trainers have got to stop having their clients do squats with a perfect upright position. So they're not concerned too much as to whether someone is leaning over a fair bit. They believe it's a good thing in terms of strengthening up that lower back position. So they might be over here a little bit more versus what I was doing there. Still trying to maintain a straight spine, but just changing positioning it a little bit, okay? So you've got to make up your mind with all these things. In this industry, in this world of fitness, it's very hard to point out definites, all right? But in your experience with nutrition, with how you train and what works well for your body, it's going to be individual. But like with all these things, you've got to decide, or you've got to be honest with yourself and ask the question, is it working? So there's a lot of things that I've covered today. I hope you've got some value out of that squat video and some of the ideas around it. Again, if you've got any questions, please shoot them through. You want to get better at this exercise, you just got to practice. All right, guys, thank you so much for your time, and I will speak to you all very soon.